All right, good evening, everyone. This microphone is for the recording. Can you hear me all in the back? Good, because I don't have to hold two different microphones. I'm glad. Does anyone want to walk through the school to get a little familiar with it?
I went to school here.
Well, I was going to ask you to show everyone, actually. Okay, then we'll go right into this session, question and answers. Thank you all for coming. We will be doing another question and answer session at the high school. We're still waiting for the school to confirm availability, but tentatively July 10th. And there'll be air conditioning at that one. Yes, and maybe in a few years there'll be air conditioning in this room as well. Yep. All right. I assume you've all heard at least some about the proposal with RAC Realty for the sale. All right. Let me hit you with some highlights. There has been a major change to that this week. There were a lot of people who expressed concern about selling, that we bought this to keep it forever. Whether we did or not, that was said a lot. There was also a concern that, well, if we sell it to RAC or to anybody, how do we know they're really going to do what they say? No. And we've talked with our attorney. We laid out the whole thought process behind it. He said, well, why don't you just lease it? And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a 99-year lease instead of a sale. It wasn't until yesterday that RAC was able to confirm that they can still get the financing they need to go forward if it's not a sale. So that's why nothing has come out before now. But we are working out the particulars. But basically, it's the same proposal that was put forward earlier, except instead of a sale, it's a 99-year lease. We own it. And we own it. We keep ownership of it. Now, after 99 years, they can buy it for $1. I don't know about you. I'm not worried about that at that point. But we have control, and again, what that does give us, we'll have agreements written beforehand about what they're going to do, like the remodeling. If they don't meet those conditions, that's grounds for eviction or to terminate their lease. So, and it's cleaner. We're all more comfortable with it, frankly. Okay? So the highlights of the deal, we're going to lease to them the 9-acre site, which is what we're sitting on now, and this building. They're paying a $350,000 leasing fee to start that. They will be responsible for paying the commercial property tax that would be assessed to this building. That's estimated, it depends on the rents they're getting, it's estimated to be about $100,000 a year. We're going to lease back what I'm calling the community wing, which is from this building, this room to my right, to your left.
Could you repeat that?
Let me try it even better with a drawing. What's proposed for the renovation of this building, this is the room we're in right now. Okay? This is the oldest section, the original section of the building. This whole area will be called what I'm calling the community wing. This will be a community room, which is this room, the warming kitchen, which will be expanded some. Then these classrooms that are here right now will be converted into a new senior center. It's about twice the size of what we have now. The one we have now is simply not large enough, and there's no room on that site to expand it at all. Parking is a problem. I don't know how many, I see one or two seniors in the room here. I don't know if you've ever gone to the senior center and had to park at the library and then make that death walk across 154 flashing lights or not. You won't have that problem here. And then the very end section with a separate entryway will be town offices. Registrar is going to move in here. They're currently in the main firehouse, and the fire department is itching to get them out. They're in a storage room, and the fire department needs the storage. The resident troopers will be moving here from the middle school, which, frankly, I think this is a much better location right here in the center. They're more in tune, in touch with what's going on. I know the school's not going to be happy with that, but they're not SROs, they're our resident troopers. So this is, like I said, when I say community wing, this is what I'm talking about. The rest of the building and the lower level will be converted into affordable senior housing. It's 36 apartments. Most are one bedroom. There are some one bedrooms with a den, and there were, I think, 4 2-bedrooms. So that's the proposal for here. Let me talk for a minute about affordable housing. If you've been following the state legislature for the last couple of years, one of the real hot buttons is affordable housing. We need it in Connecticut. They're absolutely right. We need it. We'd like our seniors to be able to find a place they can live in if they decide they want to move out of their house. I've had a number of them tell me they've moved to other towns because just when there was nothing here. We'd also probably like to have our kids and their generation be able to come back and live here if they want. So we need affordable housing. Unfortunately, the way the legislature last session proposed to go about it was very draconian for the towns. That hasn't died. I'm sure it's going to come up next year at the full session, but what they were proposing is being able to mandate to the towns, you need this many units. I don't know how they're going to figure that out, but you need this many units of affordable housing. Potential penalties, reduction in grant, state money if you don't do it. Some of the proposals were pretty draconian. Hopefully they'll come out a happy medium and there'll be more incentives, but the bottom line still is we need affordable housing. We have an affordable housing plan. In that, which the state has been filed with the state, we commit to creating 45 affordable housing units in the next, I think it was 5 years. This gets us well on the way to doing that.
Is there a difference between affordable and low income?
Yes, a big difference. It's an income level difference, probably not surprisingly. Affordable housing for a family of two in this part of Middlesex County, you can earn an income, and this is income, not assets, income of up to around $68,000, $70,000 a year. That's the upper end. I don't know offhand what the lower end of that is, but this is definitely not low income housing. Okay, High Meadows is low income and extreme low income, but this will not. This is affordable. They're starting to call it now, and I'll get to you, sir. They're starting to call it now workforce housing. Because really, when you think about it, you know, the clerks in the market, the firefighters, cops from their first starting, people starting professional lives. Rachel's waving. I think she's saying she needs affordable housing. You don't make enough to buy a house in Connecticut that you'd want to live in. So we need things to bridge that gap. That's what affordable or workplace housing is intended for. Sir, you had a question.
Yeah, is this going to be offered to Haddam residents first come? Or is it out-of-towners going to come and suck up all these spots?
All right, the question is this going to be a priority for Haddam residents in the affordable housing? They can't by law discriminate housing units based on where you're coming from, but what they can do is advertise in this area first. And yes, there will be people who move here from out of town. But also keep in mind, if we want to revitalize Higginham Center, the key to that is bringing people in here, whether they live here or come in here for events or come in here for shopping or whatever, is to draw people here. So that goes, these 36 units will help with that, whether it's drawing people from other places in town to here or drawing people from out of town. But no, they cannot say first priority is to Haddam residents.
So it's affordable and it's 55 and older, or?
65 and over, yes.
That's not really workforce then, is it?
No, it's not.
The term, the term just, I don't want to be confusing. They're starting to refer to affordable housing as workforce housing because that's what most of it is aimed for. It's all technically federal standard. It's affordable housing. That's what they're going to have here. Affordable senior housing. It is age restricted, and it's also going to be a deed restriction for at least 40 years. It has to stay in that use. It can't be converted to just market rent apartments. And our lease conditions will say it has to stay affordable. What else did I have here? All right, we lease back this wing that we're using for 10 years at $140,000 a year. After that, there's no more payments from us. RAC pays all the renovations. They will build this part of the building out to our specifications. You see the two maps on either side here, show some of the recreational facilities that they'll be taking care of. We're going to be putting a playground in the front here starting next month. That's what this circle area is. I'm not going to get too close to knock this down again. I learn slowly, but I learn. Revitalize the basketball courts, markings for pickleball courts, bocce, maybe horseshoes, more pickleball courts, walking track around it, and we can talk about more amenities and exactly what we want. But they will build the amenities to a suit, then they become our issue for maintenance and liability. And then I've said it already, 36 1 and 2 bedroom and 1 bedroom with a den apartments. Total project cost is in the $12 to $13 million range. It's going to be financed with a $4.5 million grant we got from the state. That grant isn't the same thing, but it's like the grant we had for cleaning up Scoville or for the Brownfield grant at Rossi. It required that we have a developer to partner with us. So RAC fills that role. If we don't have a developer and can't find a developer, then we have to give up the grant. So the grant funds a fair amount of it. RAC Realty will fund the rest of it. Now, how did we get here with RAC? If you don't know, 6-8 months ago now, we put out a request for proposal through the state website and our own website asking for developers who wanted to work with us to develop senior housing here, community center, and town offices. We had 3 developers respond. All of the proposals and the bid, if you want to see what it was, are on our website on the HES page. In fact, all the documents pertaining to this whole process are there. Please take a look at them, but look at the 3 proposals we've got. The other 2 proposals wanted significant tax abatements. One of them, if you read one of them, and I think it was from Heritage Housing, they say pilot payments. They don't say tax abatement, but that's a reduced payment, is a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. So the other 2 developers asked for that. The proposal from Heritage was just to make this room into a senior center, put some town offices downstairs in the lower level, put affordable housing just in that wing from here, tear down the rest of the building, and then build another building in the front parking lot for low-income housing. Yeah, we had a panel of 5 of us evaluate these proposals. The 3 of us were on the Board of Selectmen now. Kate Anderson, Peter Baird, who at the time was Board of Finance, and I were there. The town planner and the town zoning officer, Leon, also evaluated them. Our feelings were unanimous. RAC was the best proposal by far. The other proposal was Elm Tree Partners. They're the ones who built the Blue Way Commons on Brooks Court. They were asking for an extended tax abatement. They wanted us to pay for finishing the roof. Again, that's $700,000 or $800,000 based on the quotes we got. They wanted us to pay a significant amount toward improving the major systems in the building, heating system, electrical system. And that's going to be a major cost for the renovation. So of the 3 proposals, this RAC one was far and away the best. It wasn't just it squeaked by, it blew the other 2 away. Dan, and I'll repeat your question.
With a lease, are we responsible for the structure?
No. We're responsible for maintenance in the question is, with the lease, are we responsible for the structure? Structure is RAC Realty's problem. We're responsible for maintenance in our wing. They've got the whole rest of the building.
Roof falls in, it's on them.
Hopefully it's that part that falls in, but yes. Yes?
The state grant and the RAC Realty investment are $14,450,000. You said that the project cost is $12,998.
Yeah, RAC may not have to put in, we're estimating about 13. So RAC's number may be less, somewhat less, but the project cost has to be at least that amount. The project cost has to be twice the grant, or the grant gets reduced accordingly.
So since the town actually will own the whole building, that means we can't collect any property tax.
Oh, we can. We can. Because even though it's, and I checked with our lawyer today, but there's a couple of ways to go about it. By law, yeah, municipal property isn't taxed if it's used for municipal purposes. So this part may not be subject to tax, but the income generating from the apartments would be fully taxable. And most real estate, commercial real estate, is appraised for tax purposes based on income.
But they don't own it.
They don't have to own it. They are using it for tax purposes. And the other way is we also build this as a clause into the lease or the agreements that they acknowledge they're going to be paying the property each year. They'll be paying the equivalent of property tax as if they fully own the building. Yes.
Do they pay any yearly lease on the property? They're paying $350 to enter into the
No.
lease, but they're.
$1 a year
99
just for.
years. So they're getting 99 years of a lease for $350,000.
Correct.
And then you're paying $140,000 a year to lease back this part?
For 10 years.
So that's $1.4 million.
Correct.
We're paying $100,000 a year on maintenance instead.
Yeah, again, it's a true state. We've owned this building now for 5 years, so I'll get to you. I won't forget you. And if I do, just put your hand back up. We've owned this building for 5 years now. The average that we have paid for maintenance on this building is $100,000 a year. That number is going up each year. Like I said, we paid $468,000 to re-roof this, not this section, but that section of the building. There's about $700,000 or $800,000 worth of roofing that still needs to be done. And technically, if we decide we're going to keep this and we're going to change the use from education, which is the only thing it's approved for now, and I've written about this in my articles, technically to do that, you've got to bring the building up to code. Now, yes, this building was used as a school up until 5 years ago, and the school codes are probably the most strict that there is, but unfortunately, most building codes are not retroactive. They do change every year, periodically anyway, but they generally allow existing buildings to be exempt from it unless it's a serious life safety issue. So buildings have to be brought up to current code when the use is changed or when more than 50% or more, there's a construction project involving 50% or more of the building. So the last time that happened here was the 1989 edition. And there have been a few changes in the code since then. ADA requirements, this building is not fully ADA compliant. It's partway there, it's usable, but it's not fully compliant. Low flow toilets, low flow fixtures, nowhere near. The electrical system doesn't meet current code requirements. So bringing the systems up to code is going to be expensive. And honestly, what I worry about more, and that's part of the reason why we offered you a chance to look around if you want, is you ought to see the boilers in this place.
They came out of the Titanic.
I served on a ship when I was in the Coast Guard for 4 years that was launched in 1936. It went through World War II. Our boilers were better looking than what we've got here. They're past their life. It's going to hit us sooner or later. They're going to have to be replaced. That's going to be a major expense. Sir, I said I'd come back to you.
Okay, thank you. What some of the information that I'm about to say could come with a heading of privileged information, and my wife is going to hate me for it, but she's not here.
This is being recorded. I got to warn you.
She worked for Liberty Bank in the
Okay.
commercial lending division for many years. She knows RAC.
Okay.
She has dealt with them in multi-million-dollar contracts before, and she knows that they have done the same thing before that they're going to do here. So they have the experience, the professionalism, and the integrity, and the ability to do all of this work in a workmanlike fashion. She knows what they've done. She said they've never had a problem with them at the bank, with funding, with payback, with anything. So it's not like somebody just landed from Mars and said, we'll do this. They know what they're doing, she said. Now, previous to this, I was a great naysayer. When they put the lights and the sidewalks in Hingham Center, I thought, what the hell? What are they doing here? Who's going to use these sidewalks? When you talked about redoing this building, I thought, why not just, in fact, I said at one of the earlier meetings, why just knock it down and start over again? And then I talked to my wife. And she heard, we had seen this proposal and looked it over from a banker's standpoint. And knowing rent and seeing what the cost elements are and the payback elements are, she says, well, this is a no-brainer. Why are we even having a referendum about this? Let's just go ahead and do it. But anyway, we have to, because this is a democracy. But anyway, for those of you who have qualms about who these people are that are proposing to do this, I can tell you that based on my wife's experience with them over many years, they are, as I said, professional, competent, and trustworthy. So that is her information based on direct dealings with them. It's not like secondhand. And she said they've done this before. So they're not coming into it blindly. They know what they're getting into, and they know what to do. So it's not like some of the other proposals and the other contractors that were going to come in here and do it that had no experience at all about doing anything on this scale.
Okay, with that, I think we're done. I'm not, just let me talk for a minute just about RAC. I am not one of their spokespeople. But they've been in business for 30 years, third generation. They did Woodrow Wilson Apartments in Middletown, which used to be the high school, and then became a junior high, then became a middle school, and now is apartments. They did on Loveland Street in Middletown, there's another elementary school, Stillman, thank you, sir. They converted some of these projects, and projects for all of the proposals we got, we requested relevant experience. So they all included some projects I had done. But so you can go in and look and see what RAC said, you can see what the other two developers said, and like I said, for those of you who came late, all the papers and all the information about this proposal and how we got here and everything is on our website. Projects page, Higginham Center, HES page. You'll have a few links to click through, but all the stuff is there if you want to read it and look through it. Okay, ma'am.
I'd just like to know if there's any idea of the rental costs for each apartment, each size, if you have any ideas.
What was the question?
Do I have any idea what the rent is going to be in the apartments? No, I don't. I can guarantee it's less than what Brooks Court is getting. It's less than what the 105 Bridge is going to get. I think it's in the $1,700 range, $1,500. But don't quote me. And 2 years from now, when they're finally ready to go, because that's how long they estimated it would take, it'll be up or down some. Pardon me? For how much the rent could be? Yeah, it can't be more than a certain percentage of the income, person's income, or the limits for affordable. It's got to be down in that area. Hold on, let me get Bob. I'd like to speak up. Are you going to be loud enough or you need another microphone? Because this is just for recording.
Okay, Bob. I want to talk about what you and I talked about yesterday.
Hopefully we don't get feedback.
Everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
And I want to thank Bob for taking a walk with me around this property yesterday to start with. Thank you for taking it out of your busy schedule.
I appreciate your comment.
But anyway, we parked out here in the shade to start with and walked that way. And kind of, I didn't even know about a proposal like this, and maybe you didn't either, I'm not sure.
Oh, I knew it yesterday, but we hadn't finalized it. I did not, after we knew we could do it.
Okay. But anyway, we started going that way over there, past the zigzag, I'll call it. And when we come into Higginham here, there's not a presence. It's a bunch of mishmash everything. A community center would be really swell. So I've told Bob, here's some thoughts. First off, I don't think the playground should be out in the front here. It was never here when I went to school here. We should probably take down that zigzag wing, put the playground back there. Plant grass in the front and fly the flag proud and make a presence coming into town. We walked around back. Looked down the hall. It looks like hell. Low ceilings and everything else. Okay, around back, I pointed out to Bob, down back is a pond. You didn't even know was down there. It should, and then I suggested, there's nothing in town for kids around here. We have the Rossi property, which butts this property, border to border. And what we do here affects that there, or vice versa. So let's be careful. And I suggested coming in with a road down through the Rossi property to the back of the school. Clean up the pond, put a gravel road in, a gravel parking lot, so you could park and go to the trails. And we kind of moved on from there. And I mentioned that the town's going to need a salt shed. We have a perfect opportunity on this property down back here to put it. Nobody will know it's there. Make it look like a nice barn. I took their liberty of stopping in Chester to see what they have. They have a nice looking salt shed. Okay, we moved on a little bit, still talking. We came around the corner down here, and here's where it got interesting. I said to Bob, I said, you know, we could do a lot of things here. We could put the Haddam ambulance down in that bottom corner down there, close the building, save some money. We could put the seniors in one of them giant rooms down there, close the senior center across from the library. We could put the nurse from up in Jail Hill Road in this building, close another building, save more money. And then we got to the talk about the seniors, which I'm well overqualified, believe me. And it occurred to me at that point, why can't we make some of our own apartments? Everybody's talking about seniors and guaranteeing them to get here in this building. Why can't we take care of our own? I've looked into the financing over in East Haddam of what these people did. They took out a 4% loan from the Farm Bureau. Why can't we do something? I look around at other towns. You see what they have. They have a beautiful complex. Why can't we have one? Why do we have to give everything away? Why do we have to turn this end of town into Tylerville North? Why can't we keep it pristine like everybody would like it? And I think that instead of just Bob and a few select people making all these decisions where we have to come up with a yes or no instantly, why don't we get a panel of a few people to work with Bob and Warner and the rest of them, so we're not all in the dark? I don't know, what does anybody think about that? Is that? I don't know.
The whole property, including us.
I mean, what we do down, excuse me, what we do here is going to affect that down there. We
Take them. I know it's awkward, but one records, the other one amplifies for you.
What we need also is to take care of our, okay, we need a town garage. I've talked to Bob about this. We have a perfectly good building down there, which is the old pallet shop. I also went in there with Bob. He graciously opened it up, and we walked around and looked at what's going on in there. And here's a perfectly good structural steel framed building. Probably for a couple $1,000,000, instead of thinking about putting a town garage on the side of a mountain. We could do this and set a theme. Maybe put red siding, a couple of ventilators, put overhead doors facing Dublin Hill, come out to a traffic light. We don't have to start with giving everything away here. We can do this a little at a time. Perhaps look for some financing. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Ron's got some good ideas, but let me respond to some of them. And I responded to him yesterday about this. There have been a few surveys on what we should do with this area. We did the charrettes 4 years ago now. We've done online surveys, which, again, are not statistically significant, but it gives you an idea of what people want. Most, not all, most of the uses suggested for this building are incorporated into this. We've got the housing aspect of it, and yes, I will agree, multi-generational would be better, but we could get funding for seniors. We've got the housing aspect of it. We've got recreational activities around. We've got a playground for the kids. Playground's a nice looking one, draw people. Other CEOs, other chief elected officials in town have said the same thing when they've put in new playgrounds. So that helps revitalize. Is this a perfect plan? No, it is not. Will we ever have a perfect plan? No, we won't. The other thing to keep in mind with consensus and planning, and let's put a panel together, is we did that for our plan of conservation and development. That was done in 2017. It was adopted at the beginning of 2018. First off, that plan doesn't mention this building except to say it's a school, because that's what it was at the time. And even though it was less than a year until the district was accessing it, we had no indication of it. Big dent in the comprehensive plan you just put together. More telling for me was in the plan of conservation and development, they say you've got to move the town garage out of Rossi property. There are some good reasons for that. Out of the village, right. But when we talked about that in January, when we did an initial meeting on the Rossi property and what to do with it, we were immediately challenged by, well, how many people are on that group that made this decision? Well, it was 30 and it was adopted by a couple of boards and there was public input. Well, that's not enough people. You know, how much time do we have to spend analyzing and reanalyzing, trying to get to the perfect plan? And I know there are better plans than this potentially, but by the time we try to get to the perfect plan, we're not going to make any progress. Now, this is an opportunity. We applied for the grant. Honestly, didn't expect to get it. We got $4.5 million. The state had $23 million to get out, and most of those grants went to the cities. We were lucky enough to get it. So we are now at the point where we have to decide, do we want to take advantage of the grant and partner with RAC and make the changes that are proposed? And people have asked on Facebook, well, this is wrong. How can I stop the madness? Show up on the 27th and vote no, or 23rd and vote no. And we'll keep trying to figure out what to do with the building. We'll try other approaches. We can do that, and we'll keep paying for the building. If that's what you want to do, we can do that. But we have the opportunity now. We have to say yes or no now because the state isn't going to hold the $4.5 million forever. So even though it might be nice to be able to say, okay, we've got five things we can do here right now, we don't. We've got one. We've got to decide whether we want to do that or not.
I'm just, and I may be a little bit behind the times here, but can you explain a little bit about what we are required to do for the state grant, like what that entails?
All right, we have to basically do what we said we were going to do. We asked for it to create a senior center, a community wing, affordable senior housing. We have to have a developer because the state Department of Economic and Community Development, and I've said the same thing when we went through with the Rossis, the state used to just give out these grants to the town and let the town fix up the building. They'd pay to clean it up. And then because there wasn't a developer to take it to the next level, marketing and filling and that sort of thing, buildings sat vacant for years and deteriorated. So now it's common practice for this type of grant, brownfields grant, the cleanup grants, the state wants you to have a developer so they're relatively comfortable that you're moving forward.
And if I'm listening well, we have to provide 45 units of affordable housing within the town, or
we have said by the next 10 years, whenever the end date was on our affordable housing plan, we would add 35 to 45 new units.
Oh, but there's not like a certain number we have to meet for the grant?
No, not for the grant. I mean, in the grant it was proposed, I think we said 33 because that's what the initial developer we worked with thought he could get in here.
Okay. Because I was just wondering why, as far as like community usage space that's been allotted, like this, pretty much this room is the only indoor community space that's available for the rest of Haddam. You know, and this room fits, I think it's 130 people
Somewhere in there.
for the rest of Haddam to kind of vie over. And I was just kind of wondering why more of the building wasn't allotted for community use.
All right, well, we have other, we rent this building for private parties and whatnot. The community center, the existing community center, we open that the same way. The Haddam Fire Station, the big community room there, these are all available for other community groups to use. In addition to this one will be. So it's not like this is the exclusive space that's available. Okay, sir, you've had a lot of airtime. Let me get a couple other people, but I'll come back to you because I like what you say.
So my question is the present septic system here adequate for this project, or do you need to do the community septic for this?
No, it doesn't need to use, the question was, is the existing septic adequate? Most likely the answer is yes. They may have to add some more galleys to it, but it'll still be in that same footprint that the septic is now. This doesn't impact the availability of other spots around here on this property for community septic use.
Does this grant include having the sidewalk from here down to the center?
We could use it for that, but we're going to end up spending it all here. Okay, hold on, let me work my way back here.
Thanks, Bob. With this new lease proposal, has RAC agreed to this yet, or what do we have to do more negotiating?
We have some fine points to work out. But the reason, like I said, the reason I didn't say anything about this before today is RAC wasn't able to say, yes, we can agree to that until yesterday.
Bob, I forgot to mention when I was up front, this property has 2 wells on it also. Mm-hmm. We have a chance here to probably supply the village with some water from this property. We better be careful, you're going to be giving it away. Bob tells me he doesn't know if it's possible or not. Neither do I, or neither anybody else. But I suggested that we get a hold of Shima Drilling and Engineering, spend a few bucks, and figure out what we have and how good it is.
Yeah, there are 2 wells on here. They've been used for years. As far as we know, they're still clean and usable to service here. They might produce more than is necessary, but there is also the opportunity, if we negotiate with the land trust, to possibly put some wells down on the Swan Hill Preserve property. That's doable. Just like putting septic here, sewage in here is doable, but you're talking multi-million-dollar projects. Getting the water isn't the expense. It's getting it to the homeowners, the businesses, to meet all the federal requirements and the operator requirements. You've now got a continuing expense. Again, we can do that if that's what the town wants to do. We'll have to figure out financing. We can do that. It's doable. Let me work my way back here.
By leasing it, we still keep the wells.
Yeah, we still have.
We keep all the land. So we're not giving up anything.
Depends what the lease is.
We're only leasing the building.
Well, they're leasing the property as well, but will be built into the lease or a supplemental agreement that we have full rights to use the property. And the highlights of what we're going to be asking for and agree to will be put on our website as soon as we've negotiated it with RAC. Well before, at least a couple of weeks before the referendum, so people can get a chance to take a look at it. You're next, sir.
Okay. I was wondering, will there be a community dining room? Is that the plan?
Well, this room could be used for that. That's why we want, right through that door is the old warming kitchen, the original kitchen, I think, for this place. We propose to enlarge it to make it more of a functional kitchen. So this would be available for that. Oh,
Yeah.
You got to.
Yeah, just this, I haven't made up this saying, but I think it applies to what you said before about perfect, perfect, perfect. there's a saying that I've heard that's really stuck in my head, and this is a good instance to use it. The perfect is the enemy of the good. You might have something that's good. It's not perfect, but if you're looking for perfect, then you're going to be the enemy of the good idea.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I've also said many times, perfection prevents progress.
So the RAC will allow us to use the open space property as well? And what's the acreage on that?
Well, the acreage on this side is roughly 9 acres.
In the back?
You mean the Swan Hill?
Yeah, the meadow.
I don't know where the property line is between this and the Swan Hill Preserve. If it's on this property, it's not that RAC will allow us to use this property. It's going to be one of the terms of the lease agreement that the 9 acres, the exterior lot here, except for what's required for the, thank you, except for what's required for the parking, the new parking lot, will be available for community use.
Okay, because what I'm getting at is that it seems like that would be the perfect place for a community garden, perhaps tied to for educational purposes. I've seen a lot of other towns all over New England where gardening becomes part of the curriculum in school. So I just like to throw that out there as an idea, but we have to make sure that we could actually use that space for that purpose.
Yeah, nothing in what we're proposing to do with RAC would preclude doing that. I mean, I don't know what condition that meadow is in or access or anything else, but it would not be precluded by what we're proposing here.
Just a quick one, Bob. Thanks for all this. In the event that after 99 years RAC decides they want to buy it, is that just the area that they are currently leasing, or is that the entire building? Just for clarification.
Potentially, it's the entire building, because they're leasing the entire building in the site. Now, whether RAC will be here for 99 years?
So then what happens to this part of the building after the 99 years in the outside space?
Well, if RAC purchased it, then they would be the ones deciding that. Whether we would have to go back through and see if we could continue a lease on our part or whatever.
So in 99 years, we don't have the senior center, we don't have this room.
Potentially. It's potential.
But can that be put into a deed?
You can, the affordable housing part of it can be deed restricted. But if we want to eliminate the dollar buyout at 99 years, we can negotiate that with RAC.
I've been around quite a few years and been to a lot of these meetings around here. I'm 81. And I don't know how many different times it goes around and that, we study this and hold off on this and stuff like this, and we do that. And then pretty soon, this goes in other towns too, and then pretty soon, we have a plan. But now the problem is everything's gone up. It's going to cost a lot more. Codes have changed. Now you're going to bring it more up to electrical code, which I'm a retired electrician. And I think what we're doing here is good with what we're talking about with the playground out there and stuff, because that comes in town. People looks in there with kids. Oh, look at that. The kids over there. Wow, that's nice and stuff like this. And I think it'll be more apt to maybe more people be willing to come in town. Because one of the big drawbacks that used to be when I moved in, and that was the reason, was because of the good quality school way above the Middletown schools at the time. So we got a good plan here, got to get going, and I think, like you said, we argue along and debate more, and maybe we find something different and something like this. But as we keep going by, things change and cost money. So I think what we got here is real good, so I think we should get on the road and get it going.
All right, and let me just add to it, and Ron will get back to you. Also keep in mind, I mean, we can keep ownership of this, we can remodel this, we can revitalize this. It's a multi-million-dollar project no matter whose estimate you look at. Keep in mind the other things that are going on right now. School district is looking at, last plan I heard, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, was $164 million to revitalize, basically replace the high school and do some needed capital projects on the remaining schools, the intermediate school, the middle school, and the 2 elementary schools. Now, state supposedly will pay half of that, potentially. It depends on how they classify it, but a good chunk. Killingworth will pay roughly half of whatever's left over, as we will. But you're looking at a multi-million-dollar project there. We have to do something with the town garage. I mean, whether we remodel it here, or we move it to Swan Hill, the property we own, or we put it up behind the firehouse, pluses and minuses to all that, but you're probably looking at a straight remodel, about $7 million. You move it to the other 2 locations, you're probably more in the $10 million range for the site prep. We have to do something with that. Most of you have heard me say it. Our town garage is a state-of-the-art facility. Unfortunately, the state-of-the-art was 1938 when it was built. You know, no more horses there. Trucks are a little bigger than they used to be. It sorely needs to be replaced. Okay, Ron, you wanted to say something?
The future of Haddam or any other town is not a bunch of seniors like I am. The future is young people. What are we leaving for them doing this deal? Are we leaving anything? I myself would like to leave something for the future. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I went to the parade on Memorial Day. My wife and I were probably the oldest vintage people there. What we did notice, though, was a lot of young people and a lot of young kids. What are we doing to do something for them?
All right, there are opportunities here, recreational, for all age brackets. But I will say, Connecticut is aging, our senior population, we have 2 bands of population that are growing. Seniors, and we've got a band that's growing in the child range. But that band stops advancing. You know, the 22 to 32 to 42 is not growing. Kids move up, they go to high school, they go into a job, or they go into college, they go on and live somewhere else. That group is not expanding. Part of it's affordable housing. Yeah, which is what I've said before. We need to work on it, and this is a step toward one end of that spectrum. Come on, Liz, you're going to hurt yourself.
I'm trying. I have a question for you, Bob. You said that there's...
You said you can't find funding for multi-generational housing, and you also said that, you know, the only funding you seem to be able to get is for senior housing. But I'm curious, since at a meeting almost exactly a year ago, where it was very well attended, people couldn't even fit in the room, the vast majority were opposed to this project and wanted to bring all town services here to create a vibrant kind of anchor for the village. It would really allow people to get. This isn't me talking, this is, I have the minutes, I just reread the minutes. Anyway, bringing town offices, all this here. So if there's no funding available for that kind of conversion, adaptive reuse, I'm just curious, are you aware how Durham did it, how East Haddam did it, how Saybrook did it, how Westbrook did it, et cetera?
The only one of those I'm familiar with how they funded it was East Haddam. Ron's already mentioned it. They got a loan from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, a rural development loan, and we would qualify, we're rural property as well, for 4% for this $15 or $16 million required to rebuild there, to convert that school to, not housing, but to municipal offices. We could pursue the same loans. Actually, we looked at, when we got the road bond in like 2020, shortly after I became first selectman, I had the Department of Agriculture to come in to tell us about the opportunities available for rural loans. And they were available, and we could have qualified. At that time, and I'm sure it changes from year to year, we would end up paying more interest on the USDA loan than we did on the privately funded bond. I'm certainly not saying that's the condition now, right now. Those positions may have flipped, because they do flip back and forth. But loan funding is available. Grant funding, there may be some. People keep saying there's lots of grant money out there. Yes, there is lots of grant money out there. Grants are targeted. There's a lot of grant money for infrastructure work. There's a lot of grant money for other special purposes. we may qualify for some of it, and I just challenge people who say there's grant money available. Well, which grants are you talking about? Who's eligible to get them? How competitive are they? How much can you get? And how often do they offer these things? Yeah.
And keep in mind, East Haddam with their town hall, they do not take in a property tax.
That's true. But we could move the town office buildings here. At that meeting on June 8th, the consensus I got from the group, and my view of the consensus is the same as everyone else's. It depends on what you think of it at the time, because we didn't take any votes. But my view of the consensus was we really don't have enough information to make a decision. Please, let's get an architectural firm to see how could we lay out the town offices in here. And how about one maybe to look at the playgrounds? So we hired 2 architectural firms. The architectural firm that looked, we had one look at the buildings we're in and in here. Their evaluation was, by and large, the town buildings we're in are adequate. Yes, they all need something, but they were adequate, with the exception of the senior center because it's not large enough. They would like to see in the Jail Hill Annex, where social services is, be nice to have a set of stairs from the first floor to the second. Since you have offices on the first floor and to go use a bathroom, they have to go outside, which is middle of December, kind of awkward. But we have room. We can expand that building if we want to make that remodel, or we can make it even larger if we feel we need to. We can't do anything with the senior center. That space is tapped out. Like I said, the other buildings, the town office building is adequate. They had some suggestions for improvement, but the space is adequate. Pretty much everything else we're using, they did not look at the town garage, because we know that's well beyond what it should be. But that's what we looked at. We also asked them, as part of that study, is what do you estimate it would cost to remodel this building for the town offices? Their figure, and I think it's high, but their figure they gave us was based on estimates on bids they've seen recently for jobs. They were saying $32 million. Honestly, I thought it'd be more in the mid-20s. I was shocked that it was that high. But even mid-20s, I don't know about you, my checkbook doesn't have that many zeros in it.
East Haddam was 16 million, and that was 15 years ago.
Well, it was 6 years ago they finally moved in, and yes, it was 16 million. So that's where I thought maybe in the mid-20s or maybe upper 20s.
Sold their old town hall yet? Have they done something with their old town hall?
It's still sitting there.
Still sitting there. And that's the other part of it. If you think of the town office building now, people were saying, well, you could use that for office space. Yeah. Have you seen what's happening in the office market right now for real estate?
Senior housing, it would be
A small one, but it's inconvenient. You're not within.
Why senior?
You can expand at the, you just said you could expand at the
annex.
The annex.
Mm-hmm.
Housing there.
Yeah, we could actually. Part of the affordable housing plan shows footprints you could put on that property for affordable housing, whether it's senior or not. So yeah, it's doable, but we have a proposal now. If you're in favor of it, come and vote yes. If you think there should be better ideas, come and vote no.
Speaking of trying to unload buildings, has there been an appraisal on the senior center building? I mean, were the town to sell it, do we know what we could get for it?
No, we have not had a separate appraisal done on that.
As we were talking about seniors and stuff like this, and today in Haddam there are more seniors than there were 30 years ago. But it's not only here in Haddam or Middlesex County or Connecticut, it's all over the country. More and more seniors are coming out. Young people are not having as many children and stuff like this. And one of the big problems down the road everybody's talking about is like Social Security. Who's going to be paying in there for us? And they want to make changes in that. And all these different grants and stuff that are out there, which we may or may not be available, it's only there until we have a different change in government and something like this, and they decide they want to get rid of it all or reduce it, something on that line. So if we got something that's coming our way and it's still here, we better not mess around and stuff like this, and all of a sudden we don't have it.
All right, and I'll make one last comment on grants. 3 years ago now, we got a grant from the Federal Highway that we could use to repave Pine Brook Road over in Haddam Neck. We got that grant. It's called a FLAP grant, Federal Land Access Program. Well, Pine Brook Road ends in the Silvio Conti Preserve, U.S. Fish and Wildlife owns. That's why we were eligible for it. We applied for the grant. We asked for $310,000. We were approved. We were told that we were the only applicant for those grants in Connecticut. They said they had more money, and we said, certainly we'll take it all. That was 2 or 3 years ago. I have yet to get an official letter from the federal government saying, here's how much we're actually going to grant you. We've engaged the state to be a moderator for us because the feds don't trust us to spend their money. They want the state to make sure we spend their money properly. We have spent more time and money. We're about to turn the grant down because it's going to end up costing us more to take the federal $320,000 than it would be to contract and use our road crews to do the drainage and use some of the contractors we hire. So you got to be careful with grants. They sound real good, and they may be real good, but you have to know what you're getting into. And Liz, to your comment of the consensus, like I said, there were about 200 people in here, I would imagine. The room was full. There was a lot of discussion, and there was overflow outside, but there were no votes taken. There was no show of hands. There was nothing where you can, anyone who wants can say the consensus was, because no one really knows. And the minutes are on our website, there were probably 8 or 10 different uses suggested for this building at that session. And again, the main cry I heard was, we really need more information. That's why the architects.
Can I just say, that was not my takeaway, and as I said, I just reread the minutes from that meeting, and I also reread the cards that were sent out. Mm-hmm. And the majority of people are saying, don't sell the building, which now we're not doing, but also that they didn't feel that senior use was compatible. Anyway, without going, I totally disagree
I understand
with you. I totally disagree with you, all right? But that said, you also kind of started to say, but then didn't finish your sentence, that the people wanted to see, because I was the one that asked, can we please have a site and building utilization plan? We have not seen a site utilization plan. I said that at a public meeting, I don't know the last one, there's been so many, and you said there has been. Well, there wasn't. A landscape architect showed 3 images of like a dinosaur playground, I mean, not even a design, like a dinosaur playground, like a fish playground, and something else playground, right? No plan, and only specifically for that one little area there. Well, leading up to this, Mr. Warner conducted online surveys and reaching out to people for their ideas. They had a million ideas for what they wanted. And Mr. Warner prepared a not-to-scale plan showing that they all work. Well, that's what I asked to see, a plan showing that with parking. The only parking study, we finally saw something from the developer, but we haven't seen anything. Circulation, pedestrian circulation, vehicular circulation, how we have their plan now that shows kind of how we keep that separate. There's never been a site plan done. There's almost, 9 acres, almost 10 acres. All we've seen is this kind of silly presentation that's not a site utilization plan. Why haven't we seen one? And you're just saying that was your takeaway, but you didn't respond to it.
Yes, and the architectural firm we hired for the landscape architect looked at the plan that Warner had, which showed in the back a pump track, which is still a possibility, skateboard park, which is still a possibility. There's still room in that. And he felt that was a good plan. No, we did not go into a parking detail. We did not want to spend all the extra money for circulation. It was a utilization of the grounds for recreation.
Those uses, it was not to scale. I mean, it wasn't a landscape architect.
Okay, I hear that's
you said
okay.
That's what you heard. I heard a different takeaway, and at the end, I asked, can we please have an architect do an assessment of the building and a landscape architect do an assessment of the site? And then we came up with 3 plans at the presentation at HK High School, which which one was it? That's where it was. I can't remember which one, but anyway, there were 3 plans, and then suddenly only 1 plan's moving forward. That was an executive decision made by Board of Selectmen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no community input. There were 3 plans you put
No,
out
we have
there.
gotten community input through other surveys. Bill, we did an online survey to ask what playgrounds do you like? A number of them were suggested. Please. A number of them were suggested. This was the most popular design. I forget which one it's modeled after, but that was input we got on that. Okay.
3 plans presented. This, at the meeting at HK, which was only, like this one, pretty much exclusively attended by seniors, of which I'm one, right?
All right, so you're talking about the one...
Meeting at the HK auditorium.
Yeah, the one, just to clarify, you're talking about the one where the weather was so bad?
I don't know what the weather was, Bob.
Okay,
It could have been
that's...
snowing, sleeting.
I'm just trying to nail down which meeting we're talking about, but yeah, okay.
No, the one where Mr. Warner presented to the seniors the day before and didn't present to any other group, and then pretty much exclusively seniors showed up at that meeting, pretty much exclusively in support of the plan, that meeting. Well, there were 3 plans shown, one where you did what the community wanted, which was to consolidate town offices, one where it was kind of half-half, and I don't even remember. There were 3 plans. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was 1 week we were here, and there was 2
Yeah,
options.
and a couple...
If we did,
Well, no, when we...
There were 3 options.
The meeting we had, just to clarify, the meeting we had here was a presentation by the structural architects on their findings on the town building, and they had a plan, not detailed. They had this wing to some degree of detail. In fact, basically, it's very similar to what we have here now because we use their basic plan. But the rest of it was, they showed one plan was a layout of apartment spaces, just blocked out. So that was one option they had. The second option they had, still the same community wing, but then they showed block of where we could fit the town offices. And they would all fit in here. And that included HK Youth and Family Services and HK Rec Authority.
Right, but no, you're saying a survey was online for the playground. There was never a survey for the 3 uses for the building. There was not a survey, right?
Well, there weren't 3 uses presented. There were 2.
Okay, 2. I somehow feel there were 3. Okay.
Not on
there
the...
were 2. One for creating a civic center, bringing all civic and town offices here, and one which is this plan.
Basically.
So when was there a survey to figure out which you presented? But when was there a survey that asked the town which way to go?
The architect that came that night.
I'm asking.
Okay. Hold on a minute, Dan. Hold on. Let's.
I'm asking a question.
Yes, and I will answer that. We did not do a survey that said which of those options presented by the architect do you like. That's part of the purpose here. Again, we have an option that's on the table. It will not be on the table by the time we fully flesh out other potential uses for the building. So all I'm saying is, if you think this is good and we should take advantage of it now, please vote yes. If, on the other hand, you think we need to study it more, you think we need more options, that's possible. Vote no. This will go away, and then we'll try to figure out what to do with the building. But we have to decide something now.
My question is this. A year ago, we had a meeting, and the majority of the people at that meeting, despite what you think, your recollection, I've read...
So I have read the minutes, and I have read the cards, and I've read them within the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
We can agree to disagree on consensus.
Disagree.
Okay.
So there was this meeting where what I heard was a lot of people said senior housing wasn't compatible with the municipal uses, they didn't want to sell the building, all this stuff. And then, so the meeting started showing this plan. It started with a plan. Then you got feedback, then there was another meeting that showed this plan. Then you got feedback, and there's another meeting that shows this plan, but it keeps going to this plan.
Okay. At the June 8th meeting, the question we were trying to get answered is, we have $1 million between $400,000 of town money, or $880,000. We had a $480,000 grant from the state for roof, playground, and other site improvements. And the question we were trying to get answered, and it was Bill Warner who suggested it, said, we're going to look like idiots if we spend $1 million on a roof and knock down part of the building. So the question we were trying to get answered is, do you want the whole building? Do you want half of it? What do you want? So maybe that's part of the reason our focus, yours and mine, Liz, is a little different. I was looking for that answer. And the answer I got was, we really can't tell you, we need more information. There was a lot of support, there were some exceptions for keeping this section, probably for most of the others, but this was what I felt was the strongest. We have fixed this roof to stabilize it. And we're taking the rest of that grant and applying it to the playground, which is what the grant authorized.
And the big grant, the one for the affordable housing, that hadn't even come through yet at that point.
And there lies in, and I should have known better, part of the reason for people having, I'll get to you, sir, I won't forget you. Part of the reason, where's the microphone guy? Could you walk back? And then I'll come back to you, Kate. Part of the reason I'm sure there was resistance to the proposal is I couldn't tell you much about it. The proposal had just been submitted. It was one of those things where the developer, Elmcrest, came to us and said, yeah, I might be interested in partnering with you 2 weeks before the deadline for submitting the proposal. We put together an overview, 33 apartments, community wing, estimated project cost, I think we estimated about $13 million. Questions were being asked here that should have been asked. Well, how are you going to handle dividing the building between town ownership and private ownership? Well, something similar to a co-op agreement, but we couldn't get into that level of detail. Well, where's the parking going to be? We don't know. We haven't looked at that level of detail. We haven't had the time. And also, it probably wouldn't have been worth the developer's money to spend that much when we don't even know if we're getting a grant. So there were a lot of questions I couldn't answer, and rightly so, people were saying, I can't endorse it because you can't tell me about it. Fair call. Now I can tell you about it. And I can also tell you, bringing the town offices here, it's doable. It's a $32 million cost. We're left with other buildings we have to unload.
And the architect didn't advise it.
Yeah, the architect was against it too. And contrary to what you may have read on Facebook, every time the architect said, well, how do you want this to come out? I said, I want your professional opinion. I mean, I have mine with what I would like to see, but I'm not telling you. I want your honest professional opinion because it's a waste of money if I get anything else. Yeah, go ahead.
I have something separate.
Okay.
Thank you. I was to elaborate and to answer Liz's question. So when last June we left here, and the consensus I think we can all agree on was to hire an architectural firm to study the town buildings, which is what happened. We were in this room a few months ago to hear the results of that study it was an independent architectural firm, a competitive bid. They were selected out of many architects. They were the ones who stood in this room and said, we do not recommend converting this building into town office buildings. And they gave their list of reasons why. So to answer your question specifically, that is how we have ended up in this direction yet again. And whether you agree with the architect or not is your own personal decision, but we are going off of what we were advised by experts who are Antonazzi is a very well-respected architecture firm in the state of Connecticut. So to answer your question specifically, there's been a lot of public meetings and outreach, and so many that people are getting them confused. So there's been a lot of public input and outreach, and we're going off of what an expert firm advised us to do.
So quick question regarding, you mentioned before about the high school proposal. I haven't really followed that one too much in the school district. Are they proposing a new building, or are they going to be looking at revitalizing that building there, or is that still in limbo where that is?
Yeah, Kate, keep me honest. Basically, if you start again as new, the field house wouldn't be included. We couldn't get one that large because you can get square footage based on student load, and student load is a lot lower now. And the auditorium. You could not replicate those facilities in a new building. And the pool, part of the field house.
You have to have that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those are important. Those are important facilities to the community.
Yep.
So exactly how they're going about it.
So the ideal is to renovate that space, to modernize it to today's standards, more than likely is kind of what they're leaning towards. And I don't want to
It's kind of a mix of renovate and new, and a lot of it depends on how they play the state financing.
And there's one other comment I want to make is the senior center, with all the outdoor space that we have that they're proposing with this. I have 4 young kids. They're probably, by the time this is done, they're going to be at the age where they're going to want to go out, ride their bikes, go out into the basketball courts, go to the pickleball courts, do that. My mother-in-law, she passed away in January. This would have been a great spot for her. But come here, play in the ballpark, and go there and see your mother-in-law, it's not a bad thing. All the other space in town that's kind of been sitting for the past 20 years or dingy or gross, in the center of town, town garage, not visually appealing, Rossi property, not visually appealing. There's opportunities to be had here. This right here, rack, from what that gentleman said before, a very reputable developer, gets this to be kind of a cornerstone that will help blend the senior and the young crowd from some of the vision that it's seeing. Yes, it's not perfect, but thinking that there's some ability to maybe add a skate park in the back, like you mentioned before, or have the ability to use some of the space here in town to some of these things that we're kind of talking about. I know we talked about a splash pad someone mentioned before. We'll love that. And I will go out there in about 10 minutes on a day like today to go utilize it, and I know my kids would. So I think that as a senior center, a lot of perception is that it's going to be used for seniors. I view it as it's a place where kids can come and utilize the outdoor space, because kids shouldn't be indoors playing and doing stuff here as it is. They should be outside playing and having fun, and outdoor that space is being provided in this facility, which I think is the intent of what this land was used for, or wanted to be used for. As well as when it comes to the whole moving town garages and stuff like that. I think someone mentioned over here before, the town hall, the town garages and stuff like that. The town garage, personally, I don't think should be in the center of town, just for the visual and community aspect to keep it there. But when you start moving town halls, you're looking at this, they don't sell. They don't sell for another 10 to 20 years. And you're sitting with the maintenance cost and the upkeep cost and that. And I will be here when I'm 65 looking to move into a senior center with a building that's been sitting for another 20 years with no use for. We have an opportunity with a good developer with a clear vision to get a good mixed use out of it. I'm supportive of it. So, I don't know.
And I will add, the one thing Ron and I agreed with on our walk around, other than it was kind of warm, was that yes, if this place should be cleaned up, landscaped properly to make it an appropriate entry point to town. I don't see personally the playground there taking away from that. I see it enhancing it. But yes, we should be cleaning this up and hold on, I'll get back to you, Ron. We should be making this a cleaner, more attractive area.
So going off what you said with the senior center, looking in this room, there's probably about 4 people that have been at the senior center since December when I started. Those that have not been there, go there on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, around 11:30. Find a parking spot, go across the death walk. That will change your mind to move that up here. The other thing is, you had mentioned 200 people was the majority wanted a certain way. How many registered voters do we have?
6,000.
So 200 out of 6,000 does not sound like the majority of those that can vote on July 23rd.
Oh, Ron.
Back to the playground. Probably a safety factor being next to the road. The playground shouldn't probably be there.
It's been there for years.
It's been there for years. It wasn't there for years when I went to school here.
It was there when my kids.
Come on, Ron, you moved out. You've told me you moved out of the Union School, so yeah, this was a brand new school when Ron moved into it. Yeah, the guy's coming up from behind you. Get this lady, please.
There's lots of seniors here, including myself. How many people are going to move in here? Show of hands. Who's moving in when it becomes senior center? No, when it becomes apartments, are you going to move in? Okay. Who's going to move in? Who's planning it?
We're in our homes now, so we don't know.
We're trying to get new people to come in.
And another question is, we have apartments in Tylerville, two, and they're still going to build more. Does that not hit our quota for middle?
Those aren't affordable units.
Those aren't affordable?
Those are not, those are,
They're affordable, but.
well, everything's affordable if you've got enough money, but by the state and federal standards, their rent does not meet affordable. It's too expensive.
Why aren't they? Why didn't we do that?
Because It was a private project.
So we're responsible for doing that. We don't, private entities aren't responsible for doing affordable housing in the
Well,
state?
if a developer wants to come in and do affordable housing, actually, there's little the town can do to control it.
No, I'm not
The
saying the town, the state. Why doesn't the state go after them and say you need to have affordable housing?
Well, if they had accepted state money, because we mentioned this with the Rossi property, they were going to have initially 40 apartments, I think, in there. If you're using state money, 20% have to be affordable. But other than that, the state's not doing anything. Why don't you go to the back? But let me get this lady first.
I'm just concerned because in this plan, I see that the gymnasium is no longer going to be a gymnasium. And I do agree that the outdoor public spaces are awesome and it's very exciting. But at the same time, we live in New England and it's cold for a portion of the year. So with most of this building, aside from, the municipal wing, with most of this building being senior housing and just, this portion being they're going to bring pickleball in here in the winter. They're going to, but it's also they're going to want to do the plays here. And where's the Historical Society going to have their meetings? Because they're typically here as well. And where are kids going to do their indoor winter activities? I just kind of wonder why more of this building can't be appropriated for the indoor parts for the community use.
All right, and I can address that to a point. First of all, the meetings and everything else that are being done, like the Historical Society, this room would be available for that, as are the other rooms we have available, like the fire department and others. So those spaces would be available. Yes, it's limited recreation for kids in the winter. We rely a lot on HK Park and Rec for kids' activities in the winter. The other thing I would say is the gymnasium in here, it needs work, but so does the whole building. But the gymnasium in here, beyond the work it needs, is an elementary school gym. There is no provision for spectators. You can't drop your kid off and then watch and see how they do in the basketball game. And in my opinion, at this point, if you got competitive teams in there, teenagers or adults, basketball, pickleball, anything else, people are going to be running into the walls because you can stand at the edge of the basketball court and touch the wall. It's just not meant for high-intensity conflict games with big people. And the other part of it is, for the developer, they need a certain amount of footage they can put into housing to make it worthwhile for them. Might have been able to cut it back some, but again, I don't think we'd get the use of the gym that we're thinking. Oh, yes.
Sorry, I have the talking stick. So firstly, I'm sorry that I came a little bit late. I had work, and so it was a little bit of a struggle to get here. I'm glad the meeting's still going on. I do want to say that I didn't see that the meeting was posted until the 19th. And for the next date, would it be possible to post it maybe a week and a half before or a little bit more? Because I know that there are a lot of people with families and young kids that weren't able to make it. I do have a question. It's not actually my own, but it's from somebody that in fact could not make it. And it may come across as more of a comment, but if it's all right, I'd just like to share, because I know a lot of the folks that are here may be people that may be interested in senior housing and maybe seniors themselves. I wish I could move in, but unfortunately I have a little time left before I'd be eligible. So the question is, how can you justify taking public funds that are specifically granted for public betterment and handing it over in entirety to private hands? Using these funds to build a playground on land you intend to hand over to a private business seems to violate the spirit of the grant and perhaps even the specifics of the grant. It seems highly unconventional building a public park and community service space with public funds on land that is owned and controlled by a private entity. Why would we risk losing this public investment for future generations. And I just want to say that I appreciate all of the work that's gone into this. I just think we have a really sweet gem of a school here, and I think that there's a lot going for the town, and I would be sad to hand over something for the amount of money that I can't even buy a house for. 360 is the amount of money. I can't buy a home in Higginham for that price. And so I'm not against the idea of developing or anything like that, and I know other people might not be, but why can't we get more money? It seems like a lot, like a very small amount for 10 acres. And also, who's to say, what if they promise all of this and then we don't get anything? Does it revert back to the taxpayers? What happens?
Let me answer a few
Okay,
things,
sorry.
Alec, because you weren't, yeah. No,
no, I wasn't
appreciate
here.
you weren't here for the beginning of the meet. That makes it sound like I was glad weren't here. That's
No,
not what I mean.
respectfully,
I understand
it
you
was a
weren't here at the
Wednesday. I was
beginning,
working.
but the proposal has changed significantly. It's not a sale. RAC is leasing this property from us for 99 years, $350,000 to buy into it. So we are not, so particularly the control issue, we're going to have an agreement. This is RAC will provide all those recreational amenities on the plan. There might be some added, that might be changed some, but they're in agreement to what they do. If they don't, they're not in agreement with their lease terms, we can evict them and start over.
Respectfully, it seems like a material change very close to the referendum.
You're right, but it took, and again, I said earlier, the feedback from a lot of people at the first presentations is we don't want to sell it. Okay, so we've been negotiating with RAC since and talking with our lawyer and their lawyers, and as of yesterday, they finally agreed to what I'm presenting here now. So you still have not quite a month before the referendum. So you're right, but it would have been nice that I could have said this a month ago or 2 months ago when we started it. That wasn't on the table. It's on the table now.
Will it be posted so that we can read it? I mean, obviously I'll watch this meeting. Okay.
When we get to the point that we've gotten an agreement, at least the points of it, because that'll be incorporated into the referendum question, as a reference document, that will be available. You're welcome. You're wearing out the microphone here.
So I think that was the next meeting for it to be posted.
Oh, yes, excuse me. Yes. Again, planning for the 10th of July. As soon as the high school confirms we can use that date, we'll post it.
Can you post it on sites that are, I know that the town has a Facebook page, but respectfully, there are other Facebook pages that are a little bit more popular. I took the information, I saw that Leanne had posted about this meeting, and so I tried to bump it multiple times on the You Live in Haddam just so that people were aware of the meeting, and a lot of people gave me feedback that they didn't know it was happening.
Yeah, we can spread it out on some of the other sites.
In regards to this young lady's questions here, I took the liberty today to go to the town hall to find out the appraised value of this building. The appraised value of this building is $4,416,490. We also have a grant for $4,500,000 that we're going to give to RAC. And then we're going to rent this building back with the utilities and everything. It's about $190,000 a year, giving us a total of $9,106,490. Now we're going to sell it to RAC for $350,000. Leaves us giving them $8,756,490. Does that answer a question of yours?
Just one other thing, just to talk about giving the grant to a developer. The grant request, at least $3 million of the grant money was earmarked to develop senior housing, and $1.5 million for developing this wing. RAC is going to provide both developments. So using that money, paying RAC to do the renovations, or for him to use to do the renovations, does not violate the grant conditions, nor does it impact the grant for the playground, because again, we're not selling the property, we're leasing the property. Allie, you want to say more?
Yeah, maybe. So I do appreciate the math. I think the biggest thing with Facebook discussions and these town meetings is that the math, like I'm not a math person, sorry, I'm having trouble. The math sometimes isn't always clear, And I just want to make sure that we're getting a fair deal and that, you know, all of us are worried about bottom line in terms of paying taxes. And I want to know that, you know, if you hand over something that we actually own, that we, like, what kind of benefit numerically are we getting? Anyway.
Okay, and again, RAC will be, hold on a minute, Neil. RAC will be paying property tax on the building, so we'll be getting that. We're not technically handing it over to them. They're leasing the building from us, so we have control on it. And I forgot what else I was going to say. Did I miss anything, Ally?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't get here.
Oh, the taxes from RAC will be about $100,000 a year. That's an estimate.
Income.
Yeah, well,
Income.
no, the tax, yeah, it's income.
That's income to us.
And I'll be honest, no, you're not going to see a big difference in your tax bill, but it's a little more cushion as these things increase.
So I'm a little background on myself and kind of go off your point. I'm a small-time real estate investor as well as a contractor and real estate agent. Value for property is what someone's going to be paying for it. This building right now has a ton of deferred maintenance. There's been some roof done. A lot of the fixed costs that are associated with getting this building up to today's standards are going to be half, if not more than half of this budget for the roof, the electrical, the HVAC, the rest of the roof.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of fixed costs here that need to be done. Converting the spaces and basically taking a block and putting up cabinets, changing out the windows, and putting up outlets and making them into livable spaces, that's a very small portion. It's still big numbers, but smaller portion of the whole building is going to need. Looking at this as an investor, you need to take all of these hard costs that are associated with doing so and see what your return on investment is going to be. No one's going to do this because they're good people. Everyone here is to make money, and rightfully so. That's the country we live in and how we are set up as people. For RAC to come in here to do this, he's crunched this numbers, and he's probably made this proposal as best he could to give us what we need for the grant and to make this state place into something that he needs. Carving out, and I know you mentioned before, they're called the gymnasium down there. You start chipping away at that, the total amount that he's going to put into the building is going to change a little bit, and his return is going to change as well as what he's going to need to be for his cushion on the project. As an investor, I don't do this scale by any means, but he's got a good chunk of money going into this building, and to make what they're proposing and the different site plans and everything else town's going to get for benefits, I see that's a good value to the town, as well as not squandering a $4.5 million grant that the town's giving, or the state's giving to the town for the seniors as well as the place.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that because it reminded me of what I wanted to say. Ron is right as far as the assessed value of of this building for the town, but assessed values for tax purposes for municipal buildings is nowhere connected to market value. Market value, if you've bought a home ever, you've gone to a realtor, you've got a comparative market analysis, they show you the cost of recent sales in your area, houses that are similar to what you're looking at. And there's enough data out there to do that. You can't do that with municipal buildings. Even though there's a bunch of excess school on the market right now, which drives down the price you're going to get for any one of them, you just don't have the comparable sales to say, okay, this school is worth X based on the sale of this other school, or this town hall is worth Y based on the sale of these other town halls. It doesn't happen enough. So what they do for municipal government buildings in general, state, federal as well, is they look at if this building was totally destroyed and we were going to rebuild it today, what would it cost? And that's where they come up with the $4.5 million. It's really an appraisal for insurance purposes, not at all connected with the market. And the other point is, you may get an appraisal on your house that you're trying to sell and it says it's $400,000, but if the best offer you get is $250,000, that's the best offer you get. It's a ballpark, it's a guide, but it's not anything really concrete.
So I know you mentioned, so this isn't really directed at you, but whoever's watching the recording and stuff. Somebody asked me, what's the worst thing with this town? And I said social media. If you want info on the town, go to the town webpage. Do not go to If I Live in Haddam or any of these Haddam pages, because people have an agenda sometimes and will not put all the info out there. Bob is really good about having his door open, going down there during his office hours to meet him. If he's busy, you may have to wait a little bit, but his door is always open. Go to the source. And with the next meeting, everything's on the Haddam page. Go on the calendar, go into the boards. It'll show the meeting minutes, what's coming up, the agendas. If you want it on those other pages, copy it and paste it directly from the source.
Going back what you said earlier about the community room here and our part, you said we will be renting it from RAC for 10 years. After 10 years, are we gonna own this?
Well, we will always own it.
Okay.
But after 10 years, our use of this will be at no charge.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
So RAC's financing it for us.
Okay.
RAC's
Financing the renovations.
And RAC had said at the high school meeting that he was going to put split units in. He was not going to do anything with the boilers. He was going to put split AC heating units in. Why don't we do it on our part?
He probably will, because he's got to provide the boilers. You're ludicrous to try to save those boilers. They are well beyond they may last a few more years, but they're on the end of their life. So yes, I think he'll do the same thing.
Titanic, when they just discovered it.
Thank you for having this meeting. I think it's been very informative. I'm glad to see progress being made. You're listening to the people. That's really good. Could I just make a plea that as we continue down this road, regardless of what happens with the vote, that you, the town, forms a committee like you did with the Cove to look at the Rossi property and everything else that's going on in town, and try to form a vision that ties everything together, that really serves everyone in the community, not piecemeal. We've had many committees in the past. They're advisory committees. I think it's really time for a Rossi committee. I know that's off the subject of this meeting, but I would make a plea for that.
All right, and I will say that's a possibility, but also part of my thoughts on the Rossi property, and that's not what we're here to discuss tonight, so we have to decide, what are we doing with the town garage? Are we going to leave it there and remodel it? Are we going to move it? And the associated costs. I would like to get that as a referendum question. Put it out to the town. What do the majority want? So we don't run into, well, how many people are on that committee? Well, it was only 10. Well, now let's put that out to the town. Here are the three options we have. The properties we have to put it on are as good or as bad as anything we're going to get. There's not a lot of land available that would be suitable for the town garage. Let's get that answered. It doesn't mean we have to start with it right away, but at least we've got an answer. And then perhaps it's time to, all right, now let's try to figure out what's, with everything else, with the wedding venue that's in, with whatever we do here, if something happens, what's the best use of the Rossi property and potentially where the town garage is now.
I like to even see a contest for people to submit their ideas. It doesn't have to be an architectural drawing, but just ideas. Maybe they've seen something in a magazine or a newspaper article or in another town that they would like to see done here. Just lay it out there and see what people come up with. And then come out with an RFQ and see if there's any developers willing to do what we want, instead of just waiting for somebody to come along that presents an idea that maybe we like, or we like parts of it or none of it. Let's us come up with the ideas as a town and agree on what we all want.
Yeah, and I will say that if nothing else, what I learned from Rossi property is we've got to get the developer first, work with other people in the town to decide what we want, and then see if we can support it with a grant. I don't know how successful that approach would be to get a developer. I know that larger towns do it, but the larger towns have a lot of shovel-ready project. Maybe that's the best way to proceed with Rossi.
The other thing we learned is we don't want storage units.
Are you sure? I didn't pick up on that. But I will say this. The other thing we have to do with that group is there's got to be some economic reality brought into it. I mean, honestly, I had the same view of what we were talking about for Scoville. Cute little shops, hopefully a bakery, a restaurant, certainly hopefully a brewery. And that was one of the things that could have happened. Office space also was clearly approved initially. But the economics right now of running a small retail business, it's a killer. I know what I would have done 2 years from now if that was developed here. I'd walk through it. Viv and I would say, oh, look at this. Isn't this nice? Isn't that nice? Let's get a cup of coffee and a Danish. And then we'd go home and shop on Amazon. Not necessarily for the same stuff, but to be honest, particularly post-pandemic, it's where all of our shopping dollars go is online. Yeah, and we can't fight it. We've got to adapt and realize this image may not work anymore. Yeah, Allie.
Okay. Thanks so much, Bob. I'll make it quick. I went to Ledyard Elementary School, and they had a similar issue as we're having here with decreased tuition of elementary school kids, and what are we going to do with this building? What they did is they made it a mixed use, as I've heard, like for different businesses. So like this building would be broken up into smaller little businesses, and I'm not against seniors having housing, but I'll be frank, I really am worried about the value of my parents' home and our family home long term. We've seen it increase recently because of the housing market. I myself can't purchase my first home because I can't afford it, but I would like to know that the money that my parents are putting into our house is going to be sustained over time by having a downtown here in Higganum that is sustainable, that in 40 years from now, this isn't going to turn into a privately owned nursing facility. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen, so don't everyone jump on me. I will read and I will watch the video, but people are concerned about not having a cohesive plan, despite Facebook and the rhetoric, whether you like the people that post or not. I will say, I think consensus would be great to have a meeting where we talk about all of the plans together, because I don't want to hear a year from now that we're wanting to have a new elementary school built in Killingworth, or find out, oh, we have a $100 million proposal to vote on for a new school. Like, it's just, there seems to be a lack of cohesion between this property, the wedding venue, and I don't want it to feel like we're I don't know. I appreciate that everyone here was probably feeling like they want to vote yes. And I think candidly, probably that I'm feeling like I want to vote no, but I care about the town, and I think a lot of people do. And I just want us to think about this carefully. So anyway.
Okay, and to...
This has been going on for 10 years.
I appreciate that.
We have to do something.
Everyone seems...
Something has to be done, whether it's for seniors, kids, playgrounds, grocery store. Maybe we need a big Y in town. Well, maybe we need something else in town. You're against the seniors. That's what you're predicting.
No, Sean, I'm not. That's not what she's saying. You know what? My every one of us is going to be a senior one day. I have grandparents. My grandfather fought in World War II. I care about people. I am middle-aged, actually, at this point in my life. And I care deeply about elder people, and I work with people with disabilities. So to have that insinuation, I don't know you and you don't know me, and I just hope that that's not the takeaway.
What would you like to see here?
Well, school. As a young person,
a movie theater?
No, respectfully, I wish I could have kids. I wish I could afford to have kids and a family, and I really, really wish that they had an elementary school to go to. But unfortunately, that's not the situation that we're in, and I'm middle-aged, don't own a home. So, and I don't mean to overshare, but if you're asking me candidly, I think this is a very sweet elementary school, but we're kind of past that at this point. And so I just wish there was less distension in this town, because coming from another small town close by, I've never seen politics like so, and it's not Democrat, Republican. It's just very, like, in terms of the town, people feel like very in like staunch different groups about how they feel about it without talking past each other, without actually having a conversation.
But I will say, to the cohesive plan for here, the charrettes from 2020, 2019 did look at this whole area, not just this building or not just the center, but down 81. And they put together some suggestions, a lot of which have been implemented already or have been overtaken by events. So we've done that. I'm not saying we can't do it again, or I'm not even saying we shouldn't do it again, but we've had consensus, and then people challenge, well, there weren't enough people in the consensus.
Well, the vote for the Scoville property, for instance, that wasn't for a wedding venue, as I understand it. The planning and zoning approved the interpretation of it being a wedding venue as interpreting the definition of restaurant according to the town zoning regulations. I could be wrong,
No,
but that's what I heard.
Basically, that's correct. But again, it wasn't an excluded use under their, because we don't define venue in zoning. Maybe we should.
Bob, quick comment. You mentioned this in your speech about making this into possibly some commercial spaces where office and stuff like that. I own the property across the street. I have 2,000 square feet. I've had a sign out for 6 months now. I've gotten 0 phone calls. This avenue of trying to convert some of these buildings into commercial spaces, I think is one of the best things we did, was to make that a wedding venue with a one-stop shop, because you're going to go in to look at a commercial space with 40 storefronts with 3 open and 28 to 30 other ones vacant. Like, there's other avenues. Commercial is slowly dying, unfortunately. There's, like we said before, I'll say everything around here. Like, if anyone wants a space, I got one. Please talk to me afterwards. But there's not a need for it, and there's going to be, if that's what we're looking to do here, we're just going to have a building that gets slightly fixed up and goes to trash again because we can't occupy it.
Yeah, and I think the most vital thing we have to do to start, and maybe get to, Ally, what you're talking about for uses, is we need to get people in here. This starts to do that.
This could be the nucleus that starts the town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, between this and the wedding venue, if that comes through, and I certainly hope it does, that's going to generate a lot of traffic down here, and we can build on that.
So this building has been the heart of Higginham and Haddam for many, many years when it was a school. This plan is going to have a playground where kids are going to be playing out front like they used to, or wherever we put it. There's going to be pickleball courts, so young adults, teenagers, old people can go play pickleball. You're going to have activity on the grounds here. Yes, you're going to have some senior housing apartments in the back. You have a community center where you can have community activities planned for people of all ages in here. This is something for the whole town. It's not just a senior center or senior housing. It's a multi-use plan, like that man in the back said. You know, I've lived in this town for 54 years, whatever it's been, and we've had multiple plans in the 1990s or 1980s. We had a Rossi plan that went nowhere. We have a grant. We have a developer who's respected. This man talked about him before you came, a respected developer. It just seems like a no-brainer to me. So.
Okay. I'd like to just wrap this up unless somebody has... Okay. Last call.
And then they'll shut up. Okay, I heard a word used here by a couple of people. It's an F word. And it's Facebook. And a couple of people have used it, and I'm sure that a lot of people here have used it that haven't mentioned it, or not, hopefully. But what you see on Facebook is not reality. It's someone's idea of reality. And it doesn't mean that it's true just because it's online. You have to go, like the man said who was wearing the Cape Cod sweatshirt, you have to go to the source, the original source. Something that says blah, 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 .gov. And then you might get something that's real. But as far as the F word, no. That's not real, that's just opinion.
Thank you. Again, I would implore you, all these documents are on our website. You don't have to believe me. Go look at them yourself. And if you can't find them, get in touch with my office. We'll tell you how to do it. And as I look at the time, I'm beginning to get worried. I think the customs office on the Swing Bridge closes. And my wife and I don't want to spend another night sleeping in my office. We've got to get to the other side of the river. So unless somebody has any absolutely vital thing that has to be said, like the building's on fire, get the heck out, I think we're going to call it a night. Thank you for coming. Please, please, please vote at the referendum. Please vote. However you're going to vote, please vote.